All right, greetings out there in the Boozuverse. Mr. Guera here, and I'm going to get started drawing Monkey Man Robot, which I think is pretty awesome. This one was made by Miller, and it combines three different things: monkeys, men, and robots. So this ought to be interesting. I want to jazz this one up a little bit, make it look a little bit more exciting. Just standing there seems kind of plain, so let's go ahead and get started with that. As always, everything's a shape. So I'm going to start with the head. And the head is going to be an oval shape. And I like to go lightly. That way if I need to erase, I can erase without it being still there. I'm also going to draw a curved line, which is going to clue me in as an artist to where the eyes belong. According to this, one eye is bigger than the other. So I'm going to do tilted ovals to give him those big monkey expressive eyes. He also has some dark purple color here connecting his eyes. We'll worry about that in a minute. I'm going to do another curved line, and that's going to help me figure out where exactly the mouth is. That looks about right to me. And he's got this really cool, I don't know, Thanos-looking kind of jaw with these vertical lines that go up and down. So I'm going to place that jaw right about here. Now as I drew the head, the circle, I put this curved line for the eyes lower on the head. And that helps me to give the look of the Monkey Man robot looking down. And if he's looking down this direction, I'm going to put the mouth matching. So he's not going to have as much of his mouth showing because his head's tilting down. And anytime you can tilt a head, you can move the body in a way that's dynamic, it makes your image look more interesting. I'm going to lightly draw in the mouth, and it looks like there's 3 vertical lines. So 1, 2, 3, and of course we're going to darken all this up when we ink it later. I'm just kind of making a very general map of what I want to see. I've got 2 ears, of course, monkey ears. So because his head's tilted down, ears are generally right by the eyes, and those ears are also going to be ovals. Always kind of putting the character together with basic shapes is the best way to go. He's got 2 eyebrows that are kind of high up, gives him a happy, playful look. He's got this really, he's got this short hair that goes all the way around his head. So let's kind of put that in. And because it's an action pose, I want this pose to look as interesting as possible. I want him to look like, I'm going to try to draw him like he's jumping in the air. He's getting into full action. Okay, so I'm making the hair a little brushy. It looks kind of like it's moving with the wind as he jumps through the air. I'm going to do some smaller circles for the inner ear. The way that I'm going to draw him, this blue neck is pretty much going to be hidden. So the next step is I want to do the left arm, his left, our right. And the action pose I want him in, his shoulder's actually going to be in the way. Now the arms, they're 3 shapes. I usually do a circle for the shoulder, an oval for the middle part of the arm, bicep and tricep, and then for his forearm, this is going to be foreshortened, meaning his hand and his forearm, you're going to make it bigger and bigger and bigger to make it look like it's closer. So I'm using perspective to make his arm look more like it's popping out at you. And with this hand, here's another oval for my hand. I'm going to give him kind of really specific hands. Monkeys, I'm sure that you've seen monkeys, and when you see them, their hands, they're very expressive. They got to grab vines and branches and all that good stuff, so they use their hands a lot. In addition to that, their feet also kind of look like hands, so that'll be interesting to get into. I'm actually going to erase this here because I've already drawn the oval tilted to the left, and that's why I lightly draw, so that when I erase it, you can't really see anything. So now I'm going to tilt this slightly to the right, and I think this is going to make it look even better. There we go. Erase some of the unimportant parts. Great. And now I'm going to break his fingers down into kind of rounded rectangles so that I understand what I want his fingers to be doing. Okay. And for me, as an artist, I like to erase any lines that are unnecessary. Especially if I'm drawing a lot of them to help me kind of keep track of what's where. If you draw too many lines, um, it's possible that you can kind of get lost in your own construction of what you're trying to do. So I erase lines to limit things. Here's the pinky and the ring finger. Okay, and I'm trying to give him this kind of expression, but because it's his left hand, it would look like this. So this is some kind of claw hand is what I'm looking for. And again, I'm trying to make this pose as dynamic as possible, to make it look as exciting as possible. If there's action going on, which is much better than the actual template that I give to first, second, and I'm sorry, kindergarten, first, and second grades, because that tends to make it look a little bland, a little boring. So I want to punch it up. Now this hand's good, but I'm still not satisfied. I want those fingers really kind of clawed and spread apart. So let's go ahead and I'm going to move this finger. I'm going to tilt it, rotate it this way a little bit more. And that's going to, the more you're kind of flexing, whether it's your muscles or even your hands, the more kind of action pose it is, the better it's going to look. And there is no harm and no shame in having to back up and erase. None of us are perfect. So getting it right, exactly right the first time, that normally doesn't happen. And I will only accept the very first attempt if I'm under some kind of deadline. And I got to make sure that I get it right. There we go. So I encourage erasing if you need to. No harm in it. As long as you're drawing lightly, it will not make a mess of your work. There we go. That's a little bit more dynamic. You can always push it a little bit. That thumb, I want to do something with. So let me take a look at my own hand. I do this practice to make sure that looking at real life always helps. So I see that my thumb kind of curves up, and I do need to foreshorten it. So I'm going to curve it up a little bit. Excellent. Okay. Much better. So now he's got this kind of kung fu tiger claw hand going on. Don't know what it does, don't know why he's doing it, but it sure does look better than just standing there. Alright, so now we've got his arm. Looking good. Next, I think, you know what I think I'm going to do? I think, now that I look at it, I want his ears to be even bigger. So I'm going to erase this outer ear, and this one too. The reason why I want his ears bigger is because I noticed that in his construction, he's missing like a monkey nose. And I don't want to just add it in because I think it should have it. That's not my job. My job is to try and capture what the original artist was working on, what they wanted to express with their artwork. So I'm just going to enlarge in those ears a little bit more to give it more of that monkey look. And now it's time for some pupils. So I'm going to erase the inside of the eye. I'm going to give him some pupils. He's looking down to the right. So I'm going to make this guy look down and to the right. There we go. Wonderful. Starting to come together nice. The next step that I want to do is, let's go with, I'm going to kind of sketch out the body a little bit. I want him flying through the air, so we're going to use a little bit more foreshortening. We have his shoulder here, so his body's obviously going to be underneath this arm. So not a lot of it should be showing. So I'm just going to block his body out, meaning I'm going to draw, when I say block, I mean very basic shapes to kind of get an idea for myself. How is his body positioned? And I want his body to be positioned kind of like hunched over a little bit. So I'm in very general strokes kind of drawing a bit of like maybe a trapezoidish, rhombusy kind of shape here. And I'm also going to draw a small and curved rectangle down here for his abdominal area. So this is kind of his chest and his shoulders. This is abdominal area. Okay, that's a little too sharp. So I'm just going to curve it. There we go. I'm going to curve this too. I'm going to erase this little extra piece here. So now we have the body kind of positioned out the way I want it. Again, just kind of blocking out the armor. This character was selected for all of the colorfulness and the details. Even in the upper pockets, you see these interesting details. You see these spikes everywhere, coming out of his ears, coming out of his head, stars in the background, curly Q lines. You've got some, that's either a green sun or a spider, we don't know. We've got another character back here, trees with fruit, stars. This thing is loaded with details, and that's usually the ingredients for a winning Buzu character. Teachers will vote for this if it's intriguing. They want to know, what are all these little details? What is that doing? So whenever you're making one, you want to make sure to include a lot of cool, nifty little details. Continuing on, let's get to the left leg. Now this left leg, I want it to kind of come out this way. I want his left leg expanded because if you look closely, down at the bottom, you've got some purple flames coming out. Remember, he's part robot. So he's probably got some kind of metallic, I don't know if he's a cyborg or whatever, but he's got some purple, looks like flames coming out of the bottom of his shoe. So we're gonna go ahead and capture that. All right. So I'm gonna put in kind of his hips, and his hips are gonna help to really accentuate. There we go. Going to be kind of like the base for the legs, and this leg I want it to come in this direction. So I've got a thigh here, the upper part of the leg. I always like to include circles for kneecaps, calves, shin area. I'm going to do a triangular shape down here for kind of the palm of the hand. I want that hand to kind of come out like this. So we're going to put the palm here, and then we're going to put those, again, more dynamic poses, those 4 fingers coming out this way. Here's one finger, and the second finger, okay, ring finger, great, and the pinky finger. Excellent. All right, so this was going to have a purple flame coming out of the bottom here. And I'm going to put kind of his leg folded underneath him on this side. So his other leg is going to come out this way. And then the knee. And it's going to be kind of folded up underneath him, like so. And then again, as I said before, his monkey paw is kind of like I draw it the same way that I would draw any hand. And that really helps get across the fact that it's a monkey. So I'm going to kind of layer that. The hand, this monkey bottom here, it's underneath his leg. Beautiful. He doesn't have a tail, but it looks like he's got a like a spike for a tail, a red spike, so we're going to put that in. Actually, I want it pointing up a little bit. Up, up, up. Awesome. All right, coming out just fine. Now he's got, we got to deal with that other arm. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to have his other arm reaching up. So it's foreshortened and it's also hidden behind him. So I'm just going to extend it. So you have to pretend like behind his head, as the artist, you're responsible for capturing the pose, for capturing the way that the body is positioned. So I'm going to draw this arm that goes up behind his ear and comes out over here. And then you do a nice hand. Anytime, if you do something straight, that's cool, it's exciting. If you do it straight back, and that's more exciting. So you want as much flexing and posing and stretching and stressing as possible for that dynamic pose. So his wrist is going to tilt back, and then I'm going to do the whole, really kind of stretching out thumb here. Alrighty. Then there's one going this way. Great. Another one, and then of course the pinky. And I like to do, when you make there's these lines here on a hand that connect the knuckles to the wrist, helps you flex your fingers. When I'm really kind of trying to show stress, I draw those lines in there to really show that he's flexing it, he's got strong hands, all that good stuff. Alright, so we've got the main pose down. The main body is all done. Now I'm going to quickly erase some details that I don't think belong, that were mainly just construction lines. So I'm erasing those details now. Great. Just cleaning up the artwork a bit so I know what's where when I get to the inking part. Looks terrific. I like it a lot. Okay, now it's time to get to some of these cool details that have been included. So I'm going to start with the hips. There's shapes down here that I don't know what they are. I can't explain them, but I'm going to draw them in as though they were part of his outfit. So there's these two green spikes that come up, and then there's a red kind of shape that comes along the side. Pretty cool looking, like a superhero suit. He's got them up here too, so I'm going to draw one, and he's got one coming in on this side. I'll draw this one as well. But since this main circle one, you can barely see it, I'll put it in, but when the actual final artwork comes out, most of his body details will be hidden because of the pose. Alright, let's get back to this part here. It's almost like it looks like a mask in between the eyes. So I'll put that in. Great. Okay, so we've got that element there. We've got the hair. Let's pay attention to his arms. I'm going to give his arms some more robotic details just so it comes across the way that I would like it to. I might even leave the construction lines on to make his hands look more robotic. But drawing little kind of lines sometimes helps it look like a monkey, but that's, I don't know, I'm not liking the way that looks. We'll just leave it for now then. His legs have an awful lot of detail on them, so let's do his legs super duper quick. It looks like he's got kind of these upper thigh plates, which is pretty neat. I don't really see that too often. So we'll put those on first. And they have green squares in the centers. So I'm going to put the green square right in the middle here because his leg is facing forward. But here I'm going to put it off to the side because his leg is mostly facing up. So there's those two green squares. It looks like this monkey is wearing kneecaps with these plus sign designs. So I'll put one here. And you see how I curve it like a smiley face? I curve it like that, again, to help give the idea that the knee is, from the knee down, it's kind of bending back in a way. Get the other kneecap here. And And then he's got these neat little curvy swoosh, which separates the, like right in the middle of the shin. So I'll get this one here. It's like a curvy swoosh line, which is pretty neat. It's a nice little design feature here, and then on here. So we'll do the curvy swoosh here as well. Pretty neat. All right, and then the purple fire, of course. And then he's got purple fire coming out of this one too. All right. Looking good. I think that's about it. Let me double check. Oh, he's got wings. I can't forget those wings. So if I feel like if I put these triangular wings on him now, and I try to put them behind the tail, that's not going to make any sense. This tip of the tail should be further back into the distance than the wings. So I'm just going to erase the front of the tail and we'll see what happens. But if I put the tail on top, it just won't look right. So let's draw some quick wings. Here's one. And the wings have these arcs in them, arches. So here's one. And they have 1, 2, 3. So here's the second one. Always drawing lightly in case I make a mistake. And 3. A lot of kids in my class, they push down hard. They push down really hard. Put the tail back in, and the tail goes behind the wing, so that makes sense. Pushing down hard is not good. And I have discussed this at length with my class, but I'll mention it one more time here for this video. If you push down hard and then you realize you make a mistake, that's all good and well, but then when you go to erase it, sometimes too hard is just simply too hard. And no matter how much you try to erase it, you're still going to see where you made your original mistake. And good art is about hiding your mistakes, and you do that best by drawing lightly. Continuing on, let me check for any other details that I may be missing. Got the knee pads, got the legs, got the arms. He's got these spikes, so let's do these spikes super quick. He's got a spike here. These dark green spikes that seem to pop out from his back. I don't know what they do. Maybe they could do anything. You'd have to ask Miller to be sure, but they could do anything. So in my imagination, these spikes somehow help to guide his flight pattern. So when he's launching and flying around, maybe the spikes help him. They're kind of like mini wings to help him maneuver in the air. That's what I pretend anyway, but only Mr. Miller knows for sure. Okay, so we've got pretty much all the elements of the original. I'm going to make his smile so big that he squints on the bottom of his eye here. So there's a little squint there, and I'm going to make sure that his smile curves up into his face. That gives him a little bit more attitude, a little bit more of a cute factor. And what that all does really is it gives him a little bit more personality. All these things, like the action pose, paying attention to how everything's situated as far as how I've plotted out the anatomy of this character, the little smirk, all these little details help bring the character to life. So I hope that when you're making your Buzu character, you'll remember to put in those details too. Okay, that looks good to me. For right now, I'm going to leave off all of these awesome details, like the trees and the curlicue lines, and I think that's the moon, maybe? That's either the moon or a crazy face. Now it's time to turn to our pens. I'm going to start off with let's see. I think I'm going to start off with a number 1. And the reason why I'm doing that is because when it comes to metal shapes that are not organic, they're not made of living things, I like to use the numbered pens. They're very precise. When it comes to organic shapes or things that are alive and they're supposed to be moving and flowing, I like to use the brush pen. But for right now, I'm going to start by making sure that all of these mechanical shapes have the exact precise look that comes with using a small pen. So you have to kind of pick and choose what parts of this character are metallic and what parts of the character are the actual monkey. Because he's also a monkey man. So according to his name, he's 2 parts organic, something alive, and 1 part robot. Kind of using context clues to determine that. When I scan this and put it into the computer, I'm going to have the precise tools of the computer to kind of make everything all straight. But for right now, all I got is my hand, and I'll do the best I can with that. Okay, I'm going to go to the knee pads now. I'm going to make those with a bit of a thicker line, so we're going to jump up to a 5. Excuse me. It's a thicker line when you lay it down. Okay, curve out. Curve back. And I like to put a double thick line anywhere where I want to place a shadow. So if it's away from the light, if it should be a little thicker, then I'm going to put a little bit of a heavier line to make that shadow, which I'm doing here and here. Okay, let's see, what else? I'm going to put some straight lines on his fingers, or I guess in this case his toes. And hopefully you can see that, there is this mechanical look with these lines coming in. And his thumb, which has to extend out. And his palm underneath in the background. And I'm going to give him really thin monkey ankles and really wide monkey calves. I think it's a cool look for this character. This shin separation line, good. We start on this one now. Great. Notice I'm not rushing. I don't like to rush when I'm inking. Inking is very permanent. You obviously cannot erase it. So when you're inking, you want to go nice and slow and deliberately, which is why it is so important when you are working on the details to make sure that you draw lightly, you erase the lines you don't need, and you just put forth your best effort. Okay. Great. Now it's time to do the body. Move up to the body. Now the body, I'm going to switch to a brush pen. Here we go. I'm going to start thin. I'm not going to press down hard, light, and then slightly harder as I go up, and slightly lighter as I get back to the head. That creates a nice fluid line. Beautiful. Do the same thing here. Emphasize heavy and then lighter as you go up. Light, heavy. There we go. Light, heavy. Nice. Really kind of adds to the overall design of this monkey. Or at least the way it looks when it's inked, I mean. Awesome. Alright, let's not forget the details for these body details. We're going to go back to a number 5. We got those navigational spikes. One there. One here. Let's not forget his tail. That red spiky tail. What else? His wings. This other corner dark green spike. His wing arches that he's got. And when I pull this into Illustrator or even Photoshop, I'll kind of make a point to add some interesting colors to those arches to make it look more rocketeerish, maybe futuristic. I'm going to go back to the brush pen, and I'm going to do this for the arm that pops out in front of everything else. Notice how much bigger this hand is than this hand, and you want to do that a little bit because you want that hand to look like it's popping right out at you, like a 3D effect. Okay, we get the elbow area, the tricep, which is the back of the arm, kind of where the armpit is here, shoulder muscle, bicep, forearm, and the hand. Anything that is closer to the viewer when you're making composition, that means you're ordering things foreground, midground, or background. That's artistic composition. When you're making composition, anything that is closest to the person looking at your picture should have the heaviest, darkest outline you can get. The heaviest, darker outline really kind of helps to emphasize the fact that you're trying to communicate, check this out, this is closest to you, pay attention to this the most. Pinky. Kind of palm muscles. And then these lines. I like to put in those kind of lines because we all have those lines in our hands. Just as an extra touch. Here's the top of the chest. And that other little guiding line, and then the wing in the background. Complete with arches. We didn't forget those arches. Here's one. Here's two. Now it's time for the head. Now the head is almost as important. It's as important, I will say, or maybe even a little bit more important now that I think about it, than this hand. Hand's in the foreground, so you want that kung fu-y flying out at you, looking great, which it does. But what's also super important is the head, because the head holds the expression. So you know what kind of person he is. He could have a naughty look, he could have an angry look, a sad look. The facial expression is super duper important, so we're going to make sure that we give the head a nice thick outline. I'm outlining the head, and now I'm going to use this brush to really emphasize the hair, this dark green sweeping hair. My wrist is loose as I'm doing this, and I'm using my fingers to really kind of give these little kind of wispy parts of the hair. Okay, let's not forget these eyelids, or I mean not eyelids, eyebrows rather. Smirk. Eyes. Nice and slow. Retinas, pupils. Mouth. Woo! Sometimes that happens. Rolls right out of my hand. Now to capture these, I don't know, I keep calling them Thanos lines because they remind me of those weird lines that Thanos has on his mouth. So to capture those, I'm going to use a thinner brush. There we go. Okay, going back to the brush pen, finish up his other eye. This one's a number 3. I'm going to use this one to kind of shade in this darkened area in between the character's eyes that Miller used purple for. Don't know what this is. Maybe it's a mask, maybe it's a shadow. Whatever it is, it's pretty cool looking. I want to make sure it's there. The ears. Let's get the ears. I'm going to do this little last part of the face, the jaw. I'm going to make these big old ears. Here we go. And the inner part of the ears. Now this ear. Little cool details to make it pop a little bit more. I'm going to use this number 1. Just kind of give it some squiggly details. Make the character look a little bit more interesting. I'm going to do straight lines all the way here because this part of his chest is hidden in shadow, so I want it to look shadowy. I draw diagonal lines to kind of give it more shadow. Anywhere where there's supposed to be shadow, you want to give yourself some line work to help emphasize this is supposed to be in shadow. Even though I'm not using a bit of color, I want you to know that this area is shadow. It's in shadow. Gonna darken up the bottom of this leg here. Looks good to me. Last but not least, we still have this other arm reaching up. I'm gonna go back to my brush. Start thick by pressing down, and then I'm lightly, gradually pulling up on the pen to make that line skinnier and skinnier. Same thing over here. And you're going to get these dynamically drawn fingers. Okay. awesome sauce. I'm gonna put in the knuckles, these knuckles that I put down here, kind of like bionic knuckles. I started this one with the brush, and I thought, no, that's not the right way to do it. If you want something to look mechanic, you gotta use, this one's a number 3. You gotta use these pens. Brushes for things that are alive. These little strained tendons that are in the hand. Okay, darken up this finger a little bit. More pronounced outline, and I think we're about done. Oh, nope, we got these blast lines, and I do need to put some shadows on these wingtips here. Great. I'm gonna grab an 8 because I'm seeing like the wings are kind of getting lost. I don't want them to get lost. So I'm gonna darken up their edges a little bit. That looks a bit better. Make them stand out a little bit more. Alright, now just these blast lines. And I'm going to use a number, let's see, let's start with a number 1. Now, number 1 seems to be running out on me. Okay, so that's not an option anymore. We're going to go one step up with a 3. Hopefully this is still good. 3's still working just fine. Okay. Then we've got our other kind of robotic foot blasting off with heat and energy to propel them into the air. The last thing that I almost forgot that detail, that center detail over here. The last thing that I recommend for all my artists to do is always sign your work. So here's my signature. Beautiful, and I'm done. Thank you for watching this video. I hope that you got something out of it, or at least were entertained watching me work at it. Stay tuned. Be on the lookout for this very same character redone as a Booza card. Thanks a lot.